Yes. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to Real Talk. This is a weekly Monday evening program that the United Workers Party undertake on social media. And that's just one of the many ways that we use to communicate with everyone. Tonight, we have with me our honorable political leader, Dr. Thomson Fontaine. I say Dr. Thomson Fontaine because he's Dr. Thomson Fontaine, world-renowned economist. And let me welcome him tonight. But Doc, let me say it has been, a very, productive weekend in all accounts. We continue to do what we have to do, and it's something that we have set as an agenda item to communicate and to engage with the various communities. And I know Dominicans from all corners of the world are, looking forward for us to form the next government. And as we welcome them tonight to the show, we want to say good night to everyone and to say welcome. It's our pleasure to have you on a Monday evening. Some persons say to me that, that is their Monday night coffee. They cannot go and sleep without that. But so that is the kind of expectation that some persons have. But as we are about to commence this program, we will touch on, the whole idea of, the whole idea of the economic situation and the increase, factors that are causing our economic situation to be so dire. Dire, I mean, in need of reshaping, in need of redirection, proper management from an accountable government like the United Workers Party, a government in waiting that will do it. But that we will come to in a while. But let me just say to you a special good night, Doc, and just give us a little, as we normally do, a little talk about what has been happening on the ground. I know we have had our last big meeting there in Layo, but prior to that, I know you have been on the ground with the other guys. What is happening? We'd like to know. Catch up with us.
Well, let me just say, Soso, that it is indeed a pleasure to be back on again, and let me say good night to our many listeners. Tonight I feel exceptionally hopeful about the future of Dominica. The more I interact with Dominicans, the more I spend time on the ground, is the more I get, enthused or happy about the future of this country. It's true we've not had a very good past 2 decades. The last 2 decades were probably the worst in the country's history in terms of people's economic fortunes, in terms of people's ability to thrive and to make money and just to survive in Dominica. But I think our better years are ahead, and I'm very happy to be a part of this move, of this effort. Very happy to be a part of the United Workers Party, a team of people that are committed and dedicated. We had a meeting on Saturday in Layo, and I think it was Dr. TC who noted that UWP, we have Lalin, we've been in opposition all of those years, and yet people have maintained, and the support is there. Persons who have supported the party continue to do so. And I really want to say a big thank you tonight, to all those who came out to the meeting on Saturday. A big thank you to all of those, that are listening and who continue, in spite of it all, to support the party. I think that's a really good sign. Our support is there. Our support is healthy. I spent some time just going through. I was driving down. I said, why don't we just stop off at Fontaine and see some of the people there? These are our strong supporters, and we did that and had some great times there. Just thanking the people for the support. Many of them said that they were there from the outset. From the beginning they were there, and they're not going anywhere. They're in support of the party, and it was great. Just to go around and share that time, with our people, and I should have made some of those pictures available, but next Monday, I took some really nice photos with some really great folks. I want to just show a little bit of it. But I did not get it prepared for tonight, but I will do that. But I just wanted to say a big thank you, to to, the folks in Foncole and elsewhere around Dominica who continue to welcome us, who continue to encourage us, and who continue to tell us to keep fighting. And that's exactly what we're doing. We are marching on, bold, resolute, committed, determined, to get through. And that's what we are doing, in spite of the challenges, which are many, many challenges, financial and other challenges that we have, to do what is necessary for the party. But we are pushing ahead. We are doing our fundraisers. We are reaching out to sponsors. We are doing what we have to do, and the people have been supportive, very supportive of us. And so, we continue to work. We continue to move ahead. But what I think that registers most strongly with me is the determination that people have to get rid of this administration. I think that is really, really encouraging, that the majority of Dominicans feel now that this government is not working in their best interest, it's not working for them, and they want that change. And so that is very, very encouraging. I believe people will do what it takes in the next election to get rid of this administration. So that to me is a very positive thing, and it's something that keeps us, going and working and doing what we have to do, because people are excited, people are believing, and ours is just to lead the charge and to move forward.
Yes, definitely, because it is often said, that we do not blow our trumpets enough. What we do on the ground, I mean, maybe it's not necessary, but sometimes it is good to portray some of the things that we do, because we do meet interesting people. It is interesting times where people relay some of their sufferings. And it's not always good to compound the situation, knowing that people suffer, and to then compound it by actually relaying it, sharing it with people. It sounds like unethical, but sometimes we want to see the work that we do, and we must be brave enough to do it sometimes. So we must choose our battles, and in fact, try to promote what we are involved in. Because
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but as you said that there, it struck a chord, because I was going through social media earlier, and then there was a video by a gentleman, Timal, and
yes,
a few persons actually wrote to me and says, United Workers Party, you guys need to show empathy, because here it is, this gentleman is saying that he was never, like workers never really looked after him or never really reached out to him. But I listened to the video. He was not saying that. I think his concern was that the supporters of the United Workers Party, because you would hear him say it is not the leadership, it's the supporters of the United Workers
yes,
Party that saying that because he accepted the help from the Prime Minister, he is turned. But I just want to put on record that they have been extremely supportive. I know supporters who have given him donations of cash, of goods, of shoes, of clothing. I personally traveled to a plot of land that he has a couple of weeks ago, myself, and we brought along our appraiser and a builder, our deputy president or vice president is a builder, along with another young lady. We went to where he wanted to build, and gave the undertaking that we will support him. Isaac Baptist did a valuation for him completely free of charge. Did the estimates, how much is required and what is required and so on. And this young lady took it on her own to go out there and solicit the support to building that building. So he gets some support from the Prime Minister. Understand it's to pay his rent. But here it is, we are working very hard to get him a permanent structure, to actually build him a home. But we did not go there and publicize it. So now people are saying, oh, you guys are, this guy has been supporting the party, he's been very vocal, and you're doing nothing. This is absolutely not true. So as you mentioned, the fact that sometimes we do things, we do it out of the goodness of our heart. We do it because this is the right thing to do. And probably we are not as we probably should do more blowing our own trumpet, as you say, and going out there. But I personally, I don't really believe in that. I don't really believe that when you're helping someone that you have to go out there and broadcast.
no,
I don't, that does not sit comfortable with me at all. That I give somebody some help and I go out there and blow it up just for the sake of politics. Something about that. Probably I don't know. I don't know. I'm just not comfortable with it. So it's not that it's not happening. It is just that we probably are not doing a good enough job of that self-promotion. I think that's really problem. And I just wanted to give, because that's a very important example, because I know that video has been viewed by thousands of people. And the fact that several persons reached out to me and says, hey, you guys should be doing, you guys don't forget, the needy and so on. Why are you guys ignoring Timal and so? Not true. We are doing what we have to do. And I told you the extent to which we went. In fact, that area that we went to up in the heights of Fontaine, I didn't even know there was such a beautiful place. So beautiful land and nice, first time in that area, really off the beaten track, but we went there, so I mean, it's very unfortunate that people continue to push that narrative, but as a party, we are doing what we can within our means, of course. And in fact, a few weeks ago, we were in the Kalinago territory. A young man house burned down. We went there again to offer him some support to do the evaluation. And then right now we are looking to see how we can get support from different persons to help him get back on his feet. So we are doing those things. Probably we cannot do it in the way, because we don't have the deep pockets of the CBI. We don't have the deep pockets of taxpayer dollars. What we have is donations that we get from individuals and so on, and a little $5 there, a 20 there, and so on. But we're doing what we can with what we have, and I think that's the important thing to note. So we are very much concerned about the welfare and the well-being of our people. When we go on our visits, on our home visits, and we see certain circumstances, we reach out, try to get support, but we don't come back and publicize it. But it's something that we do on a very regular basis, within our constraints, obviously. But we are constantly conscious of that and constantly working in that regard.
Yes, and as a party, it's obvious that we live by the principles that we believe in. We respect people's right, people's privacy, with respect to what they're going going through. And we are probably just in compliance with what the good book said. The left hand doesn't have to know what the right hand does. So we are just really in sync. We're not like these guys, they give something and they expose the people, notwithstanding the resources of the state. Everybody has to know people get a cylinder, some medication, some handout, some harm. No. This is very disgraceful. So I'm happy that you live by the principles that you preach and respect also the rights of others. Because while it is true that individuals get different help, it is also true that they have their own. I don't think too that they would like all of their businesses to be outside. So I mean, like anything else, but we respect that. But Doc, is like anything else. We continue to do what we have to do, and it is better sometimes to beat your own drum and let people know something is happening. So from time to time we need to do that, which is what we do. Now we're going to drift now because we have concerns, obviously, about the high cost of living. But just as a preamble, before we get into the source of our discussion, I believe that we're going to highlight just one of the indicators that tells us how unconscionable this government has been, knowing that they know the economic situation is not good, but just to continue their penal sort of behavior on the people of Dominica. And whereas in our 10 pillar plan, we are talking about withdrawing certain taxations on the people so that to ease them up, to let them breathe. So we'll start with, a little talk from one of our executive members, Dr. TC.
Yes, so we are going to do that, and just to give the background to this, obviously, we had a meeting, a really great public meeting at Layu on Saturday, and the focus was on the high cost of living and how we as a party is going to deal with it. And Dr. TC gave a very good example. He was the MC for the night, and he gave a very good example of why it is that we have a problem with the high cost of living.
Right.
And so you'll see what he says in a while, but the discrepancies are just so huge. So I was talking to this individual from Antigua today, and they said, I was talking to a family member of mine in Dominica, and I told them to get a certain peel from Jolly's, and they called back and said it cost $70. I say, what? And then the person said, but I bought that in Antigua for $10. So the university said, they wanted to be extremely sure it's the same thing. They called back the pharmacy again in Antigua. Said, yes, now it's $12. And in Dominica, that same thing is $70. All right. And you have examples of this. You have, some St. Lucian friends who were there a couple of weeks ago, and they were buying this milk from that you do from almond milk. And they say that in St. Lucia, it's like $12, $13. In Dominica, it's $31 for the same box. So what we have in Dominica is extremely high prices, extremely low wages. So when your wages are that low, your prices are that high, you have a real problem. How do you bridge that gap? How do you get this? So that is what the 10 pillars attempt to answer. How do we bridge the gap of the very high prices and the low wages that we have? So our 10 pillars is centered around that. How we eliminate that gap so that people have the resources, even if the prices are high, but they have the resources to buy at those high prices. And you've heard me talk in the past about what has happened with individuals, not having to put back groceries and so on because they cannot, their budget has been exceeded long before they expected to, or they're used to getting a certain amount of goods for a certain amount of money. They go back for the same amount, and then they realize that the money is not enough. All of that, those embarrassments that all people are going through. And it's because the price is extremely high. And this example that we're going to hear from Dr. TC sets the stage very nicely. So we're going to listen to him, and then we are going to come back and talk in some more detail about how we're going to tackle this very, very serious problem that we're being faced with. So let's listen to Dr. T.C. Thomas.
Easy to have a business in Dominica these days. It is not easy. I'm not joking tonight. It is known that 20% of businesses fail in the first year. 30% fail in the second year. 50% fails in the fifth year, and 70% fails in the 10th year. So generally, having a business is hard work. But what can make it a lot more facilitating is when you have a government that's looking out for the business people. One of the roles of the government is to ensure that there is an environment that's conducive, that allows entrepreneurs to be able to work in their business. Let me give you some numbers before I call on the next speaker. I want you to know currently, if you go out and you purchase a vehicle for $150, 150 US dollars, you purchase a vehicle from Japan, 150 US dollars. By the time you put that vehicle in your hand, before you pay insurance, before you register it, before you license it, and before you put plates on it, you are going to end up having to spend $25,900 Eastern Caribbean dollars. Remember, you paid 150 US dollars for that vehicle. But at the end of the day, you are going to spend almost $26,000 before you register that vehicle. Ladies and gentlemen, this government doesn't know how to facilitate business. This government does not know how to help entrepreneurs. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, goes my pick.
All right. So
Yes.
big thanks to Dr. Thomas for drawing our attention to this, for bringing this out. Can you imagine this also? You pay $125, and he used, and you're not going to get a vehicle for $125, but just in case.
Just in case.
Gift it.
Yeah.
Somebody give you
Yeah.
a gift. $125.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
pay $25,000
Right. And
before you get even licensed this vehicle.
that's correct. And I was just making the
This
point
is
earlier.
insane.
Mhm. Yes, exactly. And that is why earlier on, when you made the comparison with the jog being sold here and in Antigua, got the comparison, it is, and we are not by any stretch of the imagination trying to blame the business people for their markup. You charge or you do your costing based on the amount of money that you pay from the time you purchase the item to customs, loading, transportation, and then obviously you must make a markup. But because of the high taxation prices or the high tax levels, that is what are causing those items to be high priced. And so, just what Dr. TC has actually enunciated at that meeting is exactly what you have been talking about, and you are not far from what Dominicans need to hear, because in the 10 pillar plan, taxation is one of the things that revisiting and reforming our tax policies. It is what that going to get us to get Dominicans be eased up of all that pressure. So you're on the right track, Doc, and I know you want to add to this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, and there are different ways of doing this. And I think the way this government is doing that is just so wrong that
Right.
you can pay that little and end up with such a huge cost. And now, because you have this extra $10,000 that you're going to be paying, just giving the government $10,000. I mean, that is just so unfair. Imagine that you're working so hard. Like, let's assume you're a public servant and you want to purchase a motor vehicle because you live Forbawi, you live somewhere in Forbawi somewhere. Where's Forbawi again?
Don't go to Blue Bay area. Just go to Blue Bay area.
Okay.
Go to
Well, further than Forbawi.
Yeah,
You live far. You live somewhere in the, Pocasset, past Pocasset, Bells, somewhere in the bush and so on. And it's kind of a hustle because, you probably want to do a couple of things if you come to work and so on. So you decide to buy a motor vehicle. So you are reaching out, you're trying to get a motor vehicle. And the government is saying, before you do anything, you have to give me at least $10,000, just like that. Has nothing to do with your taxes. Okay? Nothing to do with taxes. But you have to give government this $10,000. Okay? So that is a problem right there. Because in addition to that 10,000, you have to give them the taxes. And the way that they do that is so wrong. Okay, I believe that you should be placing your valuations should be based on the free on board value. In other words, the value at which you buy the vehicle. So if you're going to place a VAT on my vehicle, don't add my freight that I pay to it. Don't add the excise and customs and tailgate and all of those other duties. Add all of those, and then you put on the VAT. It is not right. It is absolutely not right. So we are going to tackle this. We are going to really do something about this as a government. And the way that we're going to do this, as I said before, and I want to repeat tonight, the way in which we are going to do this is to ensure that we can reform our tax system. Because the reason why we have these huge discrepancies, these huge differences in what obtains in Antigua and in St. Lucia, and in St. Vincent, and in Grenada, and in St. Kitts, and what obtains in Dominica, these are the extremely high custom duties and charges that have been placed upon the Dominican public. Some of it is absolutely not warranted. Others of it, I think, is just to inflict some pain and suffering on the Dominican public. So we are going to tackle this. We see this as a major problem. We see that's something that needs to be fixed. And that is definitely an area that we're going to focus on. And the way we're going to focus on it is to actually do it through, we're actually going to do it through this whole process of the tax reform. Okay, so tax reform is how we're going to tackle that particular issue that Dr. TC spoke about. That if you spend $125 US, which is roughly, let's say, 300 EC dollars, 300 EC dollars, you purchase a vehicle overseas. When it gets to Dominica, you pay 25. You'd have to give up $25,000. That cannot be right in any country, in any context. And this is what the government of Dominica is doing to the people of Dominica. And the people, and it's time, I mean, it's just not fair. Imagine, as I said, I am going back to my example of this young public servant who wants to do this, and then we have Dominicans on the other hand who are leaving Dominica, going overseas, and they're saying that in a couple weeks, in fact, a guy was telling me this young girl, I think she left Dominica and went to see her friend in St. Kitts. Just go on the weekend, go and see a friend in St. Kitts. And then she calls back home and says, I'm not coming back. I got a job. Says, no, I got a really good job. A week later, she calls her mom and says, Mom, guess what? I just bought me a vehicle. She just bought a vehicle after a week and a half in St. Kitts, going there, not even going to work, not even planning on doing it, but getting a good job that already she could take to the bank and have a vehicle. This same person would have been in Dominica, would have gotten a job, and probably taken them 10 to 15 years before they can even think of getting a motor vehicle. I mean, that is the huge disparities and differences that we have between what's going on in Dominica and what's going on in the rest of the islands. And one of the major reasons why so many of our young people are leaving Dominica and going elsewhere, because they are finding opportunity in other countries, opportunities that have been denied in Dominica. And that's the reason why, as a United Workers' Party government, we are going to reverse this. And that's the reason why our 10 pillars become so critical, because the 10 pillars provide the basis, the blueprint by which we keep our people in Dominica, by which we tackle this high cost of living, by which we tackle these useless taxes and fees and levies that are imposed against the people of Dominica, and make it easier that people can breathe and enjoy whatever it is that they're working for.
Yes, and I just getting a young person is texting me there, just text me and say, okay, Dr. Thomson Fontaine is correct, because some time ago, I ordered an item from the port, from overseas, and it came on the port. And, lo and behold, that person had a broker, and that broker collect the item on behalf of the person. And so when the broker does all that, the broker come now and, he or she, gives the person their total bill. And the person said, well, they paid because the customer paid, but after a time, the person was looking at their, whole documentation and the process that, the transaction involved. And lo and behold, the person is checking, but I may have been double taxed or double charged, because the person is saying they paid VAT in one area, and when they go under another area where they had to collectively pay, they aggregate everything, the customer is still asking for a total amount, or the total amount with VAT, although previously VAT was paid. So I really don't, and that may have happened to me as well, because I can remember at that same situation, and I was in a sort of battle and exchange with my broker. I ordered some part for my vehicle, and then I was saying, but look, it appears that I've already met all the initial cost. Why is that in the final cost I'm supposed to pay X amount? And it appears that VAT is again included and some other things. And he said, well, that's a complaint that many persons have had over the years. He has brought it to the attention of the guys, but for somehow, customs just cannot get that rectified. That to me again is a big problem. So not only that, the situation of a vehicle and that exorbitant cost that involved when you bring something to Dominica, it seems to me that in some instances, we are even double charged. And I think this is something that needs attention. So I want to just congratulate the United Workers' Party under your leadership for having taken the initiative to ensure that at least tax reform is going to get its due attention, so that we can pass on some of the benefits to the people who are suffering. Because you know what is happening, Lucky, with that? And I know you're going to explain further. You're an economist, and we want to be guided by the work that you do, that you are specialized in. What is happening is that what people don't understand, that the salaries that you get, it remains constant. It is on one level. But the cost of goods continue to rise. And as we see with the advent of this Middle East war, as for petrochemical products, that is going to be skyrocketing. And something else that we might experience in time, we may well be experiencing what they call hyperinflation. Well, retail prices are going to be quadrupled in some instances. And so, Doc, it is very, very encouraging when we hear things like tax reform policy coming from a United Workers' Party government in waiting, because that is what I believe, or that is just part of what will allow people to breathe a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean it is somebody on here is saying this is extortion, right? And I want to believe that it is, because when a government, and that's why I keep stressing that this government continues to wage economic warfare against its people in every form. Not only are they taking away opportunities from people, taking away the jobs, taking away the manufacturing jobs, taking away destroying the agriculture sector, not doing enough within the tourism sector, not creating enough opportunities for people to work. Not only are they satisfied with that, but the little that people have, they're taking it away. Because they have and the reason why this is happening so, and let's be very clear about that, the reason why we are in this situation is because the government has not been able to grow the economy to any significant degree. All right. And so because they've not been able to grow the economy, they're not able to have reasonable tax rates to get the level of revenues that they would like. So they impose all of those taxes, all of those levies, all of those duties. They double tax, double indent. They charge you on CIF, cost, insurance, and freight instead of FOB. And that is something, in fact, I just learned that the Barbados government is going to introduce that. Where they're going to introduce that, they're going to start valuing their duties on the cost, the free on board cost. In other words, the cost that you pay for it. Like if you're buying a car for $1,000, let's say you get a good second-hand car in Japan, $1,500. That's called free on board. That's the cost it is before it leaves Japan. That's called
no CIF, no CIF,
no insurance, no freight. Just CIF, okay? Then you buy it for $1,000, say $1,500. You probably have to pay $3,000 for insurance and freight, because it has to be ferried across. So by the time it gets to Dominica, let's say 3,000, make it easy, it's cost $4,500 US dollars, right? So what the government does, that's where they start taxing you on that 4,500, everything on that 4,500. I understand, and I need to verify it, but somebody just told me by email recently that in Barbados they're looking to discontinue that and then charge you only on the FOB, 1,005. So when they come to do their calculations, their 10% or their 40% or their 50%, they're taking 10% of 1,005, not 10% of 4,500. All right. And I think that is something, that is one way you can reform it. But we are thinking our reforms to go even further to the removal of some of those levies. So that 10,000 thing is gone. That is gone. Even before we even do the calculations, this is removed right away, because I think that is punitive, that is extortion. That is what it is. The people have been extorted for that kind of money. I mean, just because you're buying a vehicle, just because you want to buy a vehicle, just because you want to put a relatively nice piece of furniture in your home, the government is taking this huge chunk of money from you. I mean, this is just not right. It is not fair. It is not equitable. It is not right. And so we believe that our tax reform will be such that it is fair to the people of Dominica, so that people will not be looking for ways to dodge. So talking about that, you've seen, I'm sure you've seen some vehicles with FA that are not pickup trucks, right? And how how these individuals get these trucks free. I'm sure, in the past, we've reported on these huge lists of individuals who get favors from the government by not paying duties. All right. They're given their items duty free, or their vehicles, or their whatever it is, their cargo duty free, because they can get a favor out of government. Okay. And people do that. People go to the government to ask for duty free because it is just so high. It is not what they feel, it's not the level that they feel comfortable. So if they know the prime minister, they will go to him, and in some cases they do, because we do have lists, very lengthy lists of persons who get duty free. So while me and you are struggling to pay our taxes, other people get duty free. But they do that because the taxes are just so high. But if the taxes were reasonable, reasonable, so you buy a vehicle for $1,005, and by the time you're ready to drive it off, it probably costs you a 6,000, even a 5,006. You will say, okay, that's okay. You budget $6,000 because you're gonna get a vehicle for 6,000. That's less than $18,000. But don't tell me you get a vehicle for $1,005, and you have to end up paying $45,000, $50,000, $60,000. That makes absolutely no sense. People now, they have their cars and they get FA. FA is a discount that is granted to farmers. So you see cars driving around with FA.
Yes, and you're correct, because I am one of the recipients of FA. I was once upon a time a top farmer. They did my evaluation. They came on my farm, and I brought in a vehicle from England, a pickup, Toyota pickup. Now, just as you said, cost me about £4,000. By the time it came here, I won't call that duty free. I say you got an import duty waiver. I don't like the duty free. Duty free something like you were exempted from all duties. I'm saying is the import duty I got a waiver from, but the other. While it is true that I may have benefited from the import duty waiver, but it comes back right into the government coffers again, because we have the environmental levy. Remember that? We have VAT. Remember that? And so you really don't escape. So while they're giving you a break on the import duty, but just between the VAT and the environmental levy, because the environmental levy depends on what year the vehicle itself was manufactured and coming in. So you had to pay that levy. I think at the time I brought it was $3,000. But I already got a break for what? $2,500. You see already? So it's really not so.
Yeah, but it was more than that, so because remember that 2005 would have been added on to your thing, and then you'd have paid VAT on that 2005.
No, I was just saying, I was just making the point that whether or not they say I get a duty exemption, which means that I got an import duty exemption, I'm agreeing that collectively that everything have to come in and then they charge you. I agree with that. But why it is true that I got a waiver? But just putting the VAT and the environmental levy, when I look at the two figures, I can remember them clearly because since 2007. I remember that which I paid superseded or was higher than the import duty I got. So I was just saying we have to look at this thing holistically, and I'm happy that you, as the technical person in this respect, will guide the policies of government with respect to duty exemptions and the way it is going to tangibly impact on persons who are getting the benefit. And by the way, I'm not saying that, and I don't think we mean that. We are not against anyone getting duty free, because at the end of the exercise, it is Dominicans we show that got duty free, and it vehicle is in the country. You pay license, you buy gas, you pay consumption tax, you do everything. But we are saying too, it should not be just the friends of the government.
Well, but that's the problem.
It should be a policy. It should be a policy across the board that if one so desiring to request duty free, that there should be a policy that you can work under and see whether you get it, whether it's for small business, whether it's for farming, and it should be strict. And even those who are genuine or who have genuine businesses or been farmers, they don't get it because the government says, no, you oppose my policy. And those that are far from what the duty exemption is targeting, they get it. That cannot be a fair system.
But that's what the problem is the favoritism, the
That's
nepotism
correct.
that goes with it. This is absolutely wrong. But the larger point though that's important to make is that if you have a fair and equitable tax rate, people will
Yes.
feel comfortable paying it. People will not dodge and and try to fabricate costing and so on. So one of the individuals I was talking to, one of the young men that I met recently, says, in fact, when we came, they were just talking about that very same issue of the port. And he said, let me tell you my story. I saw, I think it was a bike that he got in St. Martin. And he said, when he saw the price and he brought it down, by the
Yes.
time it came from the clay, it was almost 5 times the amount that he had paid for it in St. Martin. And he said that at that point, he felt like throwing it in the sea, because he was so outraged that he has to pay so much more,
Oh my God.
over an item. And he said, but why? Why is government taking so much from the people? All you want is just a little bike for them to move around and so on,
That's
and
correct.
then so much cost, So there is a real problem there. And the way we fix it is you get the tax rates to a level where people have very little incentive to dodge or to evade or to go and get a favor from government, because they'll feel comfortable paying it. I give the example of 1,005, and if you know that you get something for 1,005 US, at the end of the day you probably pay a maximum of 6,000 US dollars, and that is fine. Then you can work with that, right? You can work with that. But don't tell me get it for 1,005, and then at the end of the day you're gonna end up paying almost $25,000. This is just not fair. It's not right. And so the way we fix this is to have comprehensive tax reform, and at the same time you are growing the economy, because you will understand when you start to lower those rates, you will lose some revenue. But I'll tell you what, if the rates are well established and well placed, you might actually get more people buying more things.
Of
And
course.
so you're not making a lot more than you would otherwise.
That's correct.
And now everybody's paying, nobody's getting duty free. Everybody's paying the duties because they feel that it is equitable, it is comfortable, it is fair, and they are willing to contribute that to government revenue. So at the end of the day, you might actually do better. But assuming that you don't, assuming for whatever reason, you don't get to the same levels that you want to. But if you're growing the economy, then you're going to get more revenues that will come into government. Because as the economy grows, your tax levels or your tax returns or the amount you get out of taxation is going to also rise. They move in the same direction. The problem the government has is that because they have not been able to grow the economy has been stagnated and declining. It's the same thing. If your economy is declining, your taxes, your revenues to run the affairs of state, to pay your public workers, to put medicine in the hospitals, to buy chalkboard for the students in the school, all of that is going to go down. And that's the reason why Soso we've had so much problems in the hospital, for example. We cannot get medicines. It's not by accident. You can't get medicines in the hospital because the government doesn't have the resources. Normally, these are resources that come from taxation and other fees that government charge. But because the economy is nosediving, is going down, taxes are going down. So all of a sudden, there's no money to buy medicine in the hospital. There is no money to buy bandages. So you have a family member in the hospital, you have to go and privately buy, bandages and paracetamol and everything else. There's none at the hospital. You have a teacher making $1,500 a month. And yet at the end of that month, they have to put their hand in their pocket, what little they have, and buy a chalkboard or buy, material to be used in the school because there is none coming from government. Right? So you have those problems. And at the heart of this is the failure of government to grow the economy. And that is where the United Workers' Party stands in stark contrast to this government, because we know how to do this. We know how. The United Workers' Party did it already in the past. There's a track record of performance on the economy by the United Workers' Party, growing the economy every single year, money meeting money, creating opportunities for people. So we have that track record, and now we have the track record and expertise of people like myself and Claudius and you Soso, and others who know how to do those things. And so I believe that we offer a very good and powerful alternative to what we now have in this government, because what we offer is a chance to reduce on the very high cost of living, grow the economy so that the government does not suffer a loss per se, and that we have the resources that we need to take care of our health, take care of our education, take care of our senior citizens, do the social programs that are necessary, provide some kind of substitute or some kind of subsidy for the agriculture sector, encourage manufacturing. I can do all of those things. At the end of the day, as we said, the emphasis is on putting money into people's pockets, growing the economy in a way that Dominicans can be proud of. And that is what we offer. That's what we offer.
Yes, and that is true. And what you have just said there is incontestable. We have the resources, we have the expertise within this organization, United Workers' Party, and outside of it too as well, because remember, we are governing inclusively, talking about people with expertise, and we can bring about meaningful change with respect to letting Dominicans live a better quality of life. But let's take these two comments there. No, somebody said earlier there, we call it sales tax, but we also have another book value we go by also in the United States. But I wouldn't know what that means. Person can explain. If you know about it.
Okay, I think so. So the person must be referring to, some goods are how we call it, they're pre-valued. So for example, the customs will tell you that if you're bringing in a television set that is a brand new television set, they have a price for that. Samsung 50-inch television, their price is $1,600. Okay, let's say $600 US. So they're going to charge you duty on that. So whether you now bring in an invoice or a receipt that shows you got that $1,600 television on sale for $200, they're not going to charge you
only $200. They will charge only $1,600
because they have a preset, and that's what a lot of people find, that they cannot comprehend, they cannot understand why they're doing this. The customs now, they say, well, because people tend to forge
receipts,
the receipts and so on. So they have their own value. But I think there were times that people, so for example, if you're buying from places like Amazon and so on, there are ways of verifying the authenticity of these receipts. And I don't see why people should not be charged on the value of what they pay, because you can get a good deal, you can get a sale. Why it is that they arbitrarily charge you this higher price? So that's what this individual is referring to there.
Yes, I think I understand it now, and it's correct, because there are persons who wait when it's still time to buy, because at the time they get value for money. So I understand that. Look, somebody else is saying it is not just because you want this, it is because Carrot wants our people to remain poor and destitute, so that he can step in and give you some money or ration, and now you see him as a god. Bob Marley has always said, or he once said, take no favor from a politician, because he shall control you forever. But an interesting one is coming up there. Somebody saying, I think there needs to be a wave of consciousness to bring back the agro manufacturing industry and introduce newer industries to utilize new technologies that are available, so that we can increase our exports and attract foreign investment and foreign currency. If we are not producing anything to export based on what we are capable of producing, then we have nothing to sell in exchange for any foreign exchange. Doc, that's right in your goal.
Yes. Absolutely. And in fact, that's one of the things. So that's one of our 10 pillars, an agro manufacturing sector to support agriculture, because we are going to do agriculture a lot smarter in the past. When we talk about reintroducing agriculture, a lot of people think that we are just talking about bananas, going back to
Oh, not at
bananas,
all.
and that we're exporting a raw
No.
material. No, our agriculture is going to be a lot smarter. Our agriculture is about agro processing to complement whatever it is that we are producing. So we're not going to be sending our raw plantains overseas. You're going to convert that into chips. Our cassava, we're not going to send our farine overseas. You're going to convert that to flour. We are going to be doing pasta. We are going to be doing all of those things that adds value to our agriculture produce, because we don't have this huge amount of space where we can produce in abundance. We have some limits as to how much we can produce. But when we produce them, we want to be able to add and then to do the agro processing. So that's a major part of our 10 pillars. And that is something that we continue to let Dominicans know that we plan to aggressively pursue, because we are going to tie in agro processing with our agriculture so that we can get the maximum benefit out of it.
Yes, and Doc, and the whole idea of creativity is that we have always said that the public-private partnership is very important with respect to we going forward. And if we are to have a vibrant private sector, it seems to me that somehow government may have its policies directed at incentivizing that sector and asking people to come forward and invest. It is not that some Dominicans don't have money, but it is not so prudent for them to invest in an environment where they may just put money in and not get anything back from what they invest. And so it is the responsibility of government from time to time to ensure that they make the enabling environment conducive for investment, and that people should be assured that they are going to get the necessary support from government so that they can actually invest. Because the more we invest is the more, the availability of jobs become more apparent, people will be employed. And as you rightly said earlier, it is also impacting on our social security as well. Because as your economy shrinks in terms of you don't have any numbers being employed, and to contribute to that, collection of taxes, what happens is that it affects every area that the government generates its taxes from. The income tax will not get enough. The social security will not get enough. And so those who would have attained the age of retirement or take early retirement, although yes, they have in a first aspect where they're actually losing a certain percentage because they take it early. But even that is a threat to they getting their monthly, contributions from the social security. If our situation continues and we don't beef up employment so that people can continue to actually contribute, because you have people leaving the system, but the rate at which people leave the system is not the rate at which government employs. And government, again, cannot employ everybody. And that is one of the things that this government likes. Well, right now in our situation in Dominica, that the government is the biggest employer. But everywhere else you go in the world, you will see that the private sector is what driving a number of economies to what we call, prosperity. And so the shared prosperity that we talk for all is the shared prosperity for citizens, is the shared prosperity for business people, is the shared prosperity for government itself. Because when the tax policies are so well directed and it encourages people to invest and to work hard and to be more productive, subsequent to that, government will benefit. So I believe too, Doc, with all the thrust we put with respect to incentivizing there and the 10 pillar, the point is we need to put more people to work so that we can generate that kind of income to sustain the very institutions that we rely on when we age or when we are at retirement age to get the legal pittance that we work for.
That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line, Soso. And that's why I'm excited about the 10 pillars, because it creates the opportunity for job creation in every single sector: manufacturing, agriculture, construction, the tourism, ecotourism, our sports and culture industry, all of those areas, we can create opportunities. And that to me is a fascinating thing. So if you don't want to be a farmer, you're a bouillon artist, or you're a soca artist, or you're a reggae artist, or you're just a singer, you can focus in that area and make money out of it. That is the whole deal. That is what we're about, you know, it is a bit unfortunate though that we have had 25 or 26 years of that type of governance in Dominica, because it has not done the country well. It has not worked for so many people. But I think we have an opportunity now to make this right. And that is why I am hoping that the people of Dominica will pay special attention to what it is that we are offering. And you keep hearing them say so, but you guys doesn't say what you're doing. I mean, that's what we're doing every single Monday night. That's what we do when we go on the ground. That's what we tell people what it is that we're going to do. The 10 pillars: revive agriculture, revive manufacturing, introduce our water industry, our tourism, our Kalinago people, culture, all of those things. We keep repeating that and we keep saying it. And I want Dominicans to listen, listen to what it is that we're saying,
Yes, and Doc, it's interesting again. That is the talk that is generating a lot of interest amongst young person. And look, one young person saying, "Good day, Dr. Thomson Fontaine or Mr. Thomson Fontaine. I hope you are doing well. I'm reaching out because I'm a young man currently working towards starting a shrimp farming venture, and I would really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. Please let me know of your convenience when you'll be available and a time that we can connect." Doc, here it is. Wow, interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm certainly willing to talk to him. I'm very excited about that. I like to hear young people doing things, taking the initiative. That is something that can work. We went, in fact, under the United Workers' Party, there were a number of shrimp farms around Dominica. Shrimp farming was becoming thing. I mean, a pound of shrimp, I think, is about $30 now.
Yes.
So it has money. So yeah, absolutely. Let us talk, Terry. You tell me if you have my contact. If you don't, you can always reach me on Facebook via Messenger, and we can start the conversation that way. I'm on Facebook. You can do it either through the party page or through my own personal page, and let us talk. I'm certainly looking forward to talking to you and meeting you on this. I think we need to have a conversation around that, because I'm very happy to hear that. Very happy to hear that you have young people who are thinking of those types of entrepreneurial work and things to do. That's an absolutely great way to go.
And Doc, as a young man, you heard that you could contact the political leader with the avenues that he just instructed you to do so. But Doc, it is important to remind persons and just to let this young person know that this is a positive venture or undertaking, because under the United Workers' Party, when the Taiwanese were working with us, we were able to develop a lot of what they call prawn farms. And, persons were in prawn farming, that they will actually breed the production of prawns and then they harvest, sell to the hotels. And that was a big dish in Dominica. And that was selling something like, at the time, $10, $15 a pound. So it's a lucrative venture. And for sure, it will grow. Under the government, you can talk to Dr. Thomson Fontaine. We could develop this further. We could actually put a plan of action together to see how we can develop a business compendium around this. And let us work with it to see how we can do it, because this is the kind of encouragement we need. And so, Doc, I will agree with you that persons who continue to deny that we are actually communicating with people and informing them and having what they call a conversation to take us closer to where we want to get. So persons who are denying us of that kind of chance that we are having and the kind of effort that we are making are persons who really want to remain ignorant of the fact that they know that there's a viable alternative in the United Workers' Party and that we are doing what we have to do. So for those who say we're not hearing is only bashing this, you can, for a year now, we have been talking about moving this economy, directing our conversation towards our 10-pillar plan. Don't tell me you're not hearing what we are saying. And this is a very good reason why this young man was able to say, look, it is now that I'm hearing sensible conversations that I'm able to now say, look, I have got a proposal, and I will be getting in contact with the political leader of our party, Dr. Thomson Fontaine, to share this with him. It's encouraging, Doc. It's encouraging. Another person is saying there, a question. Is the opposition taking any serious mandate to revitalize the cooperatives like the Bay Oil, Fisheries Cooperative, etc., with the intentions of making the Bay Oil and fisheries farmers as the main beneficiaries of the cooperative. Seeing that over the decades, the Bay Oil farmers have not earned their fair share from the Bay Oil production in Dominica. Well, Doc, I know you're not a fanatic, but you have been talking about this for many, many, many years and still continue to focus and believe that this still is a good dream for Dominica.
It is, and also I believe as well that the farmers, the one who take the risk and should be the biggest beneficiary. So if you're in a cooperative, the farmer is the one that's supposed to enjoy the best benefit from it. So I think the person is pointing to some issues that may exist. That is something that we would certainly need to investigate and look into. But I can give the undertaking that Bay Oil is a critical part of the essential oils industry that we're looking to revitalize. And we've spoken about that in the past. You know, why can't we have a perfume industry in Dominica? Why can't we do creams and other things, you know? That is doable, that is possible with the essential oils. And the cooperative route is one way to go. There are other ways that you can organize farmers and producers. The cooperatives is one way that we've tried in the past. If it's not working, then we can look at other ways of doing it. But by all means, these areas are areas that we have to really focus on, and fishing. I mean, we can do so much with our fishing industry. And that is one thing that I believe, that's one thing that we have maintained as a government that we will do. Is the whole idea of canning, of fish canning. We must have a small fish canning industry, you know, that we can can our own tuna, we can can our own, you know, our sprags and our kulu and so on. There must be a way that we can do it. Pacific countries are doing it. Countries in Africa that share the coast are doing it. Why can't we do it here in Dominica? We have the fishing industry there. We have the farmers. We can then get more people, more young people into fishing. We can then go into commercial fishing, because when you look at what we're doing now, it is still very low, small scale type of, you know, of industry. We believe that we can push beyond that to have large scale commercial fishing. So yeah, these are areas that we're definitely interested in, and we are looking, because these are the areas where we're going to get the growth that we spoke about, you know, using those things that we have, improving on them and making them better.
Yes, somebody is saying there, though, I think we should start taking steps towards, or to encourage and to help our people to start growing the raw materials that will be needed for manufacturing preemptively. We are going to need the raw materials on hand. Otherwise, we will end up having to import it during the transformation period. And I agree, because, Doc, we have spent countless times on this, and we talk about, you know, the whole idea of our primary products being converted to the secondary products, we conversion from primary to secondary. That is exactly what we're talking about, and that's where the raw material aspect is coming in. And not only that, if at all we do not have all of the raw materials, then it is expected to be imported, but those who import it will not be charged the duty immediately. We need to have the raw materials being used, and then after you get charged. Too often you bring raw materials, it has not started anything yet, and then people starting to get charged from the port. So I know,
yes,
yeah.
I see what the NEPT is saying, but you remember when Venezuela gave Dominica a coffee factory?
Yes, and coffee pods.
And then they also gave coffee, right? The suggestion there was, you start off. So the farmers see the factory in operation, they see the coffee being produced. That will give the farmers the encouragement to go out and grow the coffee.
That's correct.
All right. So there is something to be said about having that startup. And for example, if when we get into office in the next few months and we form the government of this country, we decide to go into agro-processing in a very big way. Initially, you may not have the orange pulp and the grapefruit pulp and the pineapple pulp to make into juices. That you'd have to import. You might have to import from Florida, you'd have to import from Latin America. But with the understanding that you would do it for a short period, 2-3 years that it would take, to do, because it is very difficult now, being out of government, to have a cohesive program of agriculture where we can say, because if you're going to direct farmers to plant, you have to think of subsidizing, you have to think of making sure that they have the inputs and the financing and so on. None of that is in place. So it will be extremely difficult for us now outside of government to do this. And this government seems very unwilling to do anything like this, because even where they have encouraged, they say they're going to give land to individuals, abandoned lands, they've not moved beyond that. They're just telling young people, hey, we're going to give you land in those areas. But where is the support? You can't just give people that and say, go and work it. They need support. They need the input. These are individuals who are not themselves working, who don't have the capital. Government must, at least in the initial phases, provide that, right? So that's why I say we do not want to be irresponsible and tell people go out there, because we understand that there are limitations, go out there and plant. I can tell a farmer now, go and plant dashing, because it's relatively easy, and there is a given market. There's a market for it. But in the absence of that, if you're talking about tree crops like citrus and so on, where you're going to need treatment, you're going to need chemicals, you have to treat for all of these pests and everything else. Unless it is organized, it might be difficult to ask people to start. But then you start the industry, import the material from overseas until you can get that substituted locally. And that, I think, is the way to go.
Yes, it's becoming interesting. And we have a few comments. I will just read some of them, and then we will just actually close up briefly. And the young guy is asking again, though, same young guy said he also want to ask how possible it is that we can begin implementing most of our plans without being in a position of power, as a way to show people that you're serious and committed. Before I know you'll answer, but I just want to assure the young guy that I see the political leader smiling,
because I answered that question even before saying yes. That's exactly what I was just saying. I was kind of talking about the challenges that you have being in opposition. Because if you're gonna organize that, you need the resources to organize it. There's no question about it.
But in the meantime, I will just tell him that even as we speak in a position without power, you and the United Workers' Party, actually, we are buying agricultural produce from farmers and sheep. That is something that we do. Young man, the farmers can give their testimonies of that. That is what is going on all now.
Every week, in fact, so I was looking at the records, and since we started, we've already exported over 60,000 pounds. Tons.
We also help people develop their business plans. You will not see our name springing about, but we do help with respect to aiding people with their business plans and to let them seek alternative financing. So we have the expertise among us. And the young man, if you don't know, the situation here is really Dominica. Imagine once I wrote something for somebody, and because my name was on the document, they tell the person bye-bye. But it is just a sad situation in our country. I mean, I'm stuck. I'm speaking to you here, young man, and because you're a young guy and you want to know, we have expertise idle around in Dominica. Yes, the banana industry is no more, but we could have had the banana industry and then spring up to other areas, because in our time in office as a WP, we've moved non-banana crops from 2 million to between 26 and $45 million. That was a start. When this government came in office, it's right down. So we were moving by now. Would have had what they call now our manufacturing products. Would have been in full-blown agro-industry development. So just to let you know that. And just Doc, 2 more comments before we wrap it up. Talking about canning, as I said, Iran crisis is coming thick and vicious economically. Why not the opposition take a small initiative in doing vacuum sealing smoked fish? This is one produce that can have a long shelf storage life to help in the food shortage crisis. I think that was missed in some previous programs, but notwithstanding, we're still reading. For small operations, fast turnover crops like culinary herbs, salad, green lettuce, and so. Again, the convention was missed. We have spoken about that in the past, but we're encouraged by the movement and the continued, continued what they call talk on what we should do. We say we can grow saffron. We have to go into high value products, gourmet, mushroom, lavender, microgreens, which can generate $50,000 like that. And the person is right. Just in St. Lucia, Doc, there's a couple who actually had that initiative and actually brought about a blooming mushroom industry. It started small, and now this industry now is actually serving almost every aspect of the Caribbean production. Imagine the volumes, so much. It is, well, St. Lucia now is self-sufficient in this, and now they have excess going to the region. So yes, these things are doable, and these are some of the things that we'll explore. And rest assured, we have the resources around us to build on these things, and that is why an important agricultural forum with these kinds of ideas are very important, that we can formulate it into what we call a national plan or an integrated national plan, so that holistically we can develop the policies and then to do the framework so that we can actually start heading where we will be exhibiting Dominica's product on the market. And I must say too, that it will not just be a Dominica's product, it will be a Nature Island brand. Doc, your closing remarks.
Well, yeah, so just to say, this person saying greenhouses, cheese, cattle, fishing trawlers, microgreen, some excellent ideas that are coming forward, and then let me just have this final one. Making money in agriculture involves focusing on high value niche, value crops, direct to the consumer, sales. We need to have a conversation with this gentleman that is putting out all of these very serious ideas. And let me just say so as well. Even as we speak and as I close off, I would like to encourage our listeners and our viewers to reach out to us. If you want to work with us going forward to help put those ideas together, to help, even if when we are ready to start, you are there to help, you have the expertise, please contact us, okay? We are putting together various groups in various areas that can begin the process of working on some of those ideas. So if that's something you feel that you have the capabilities and the knowledge to do, please reach out to us, okay? You can do that via our Facebook page. Just go on there, message us, send us a message, and we'll be happy to respond. We'll be happy to talk to you, okay? So I just wanted to put that in there. I think that's very important. We have the talent out there, we have the capabilities, and we need to begin to organize that so that when we start with a bang, and we really accomplish a lot within a very short space of time. So that's how we're going to do it. That's how we're going to end tonight as well, and say a big thank you to everyone. And really we'll continue on Thursday. So we're going to have our radio program, of course, and we are looking forward to have a very interesting gentleman with us. Some people would have seen him on Saturday night, a young man, talking about the future for young people in Dominica. So we're going to have him on with us to talk some more about his vision and his plans, a young man from the town of Portsmouth. So we're looking forward to that on Thursday on our radio program. So yeah, just want to say thanks to everyone for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again, of course, on Thursday.
Yes, so I will, thank you everyone again for those of you who have participated, and we do appreciate your support, your contributions, and this is the work of the United Workers' Party. We continue to talk. Some people might accuse us of being repetitive. Well, we are sorry. That's the message we have. We can do nothing better than to tell you what is it that we are going to do for you. Don't accuse us of being repetitive. We need to have it stuck in the minds of the people that we need to transform their lives. And so with this social media program, we are going ahead. And so let me just say good night. Thank you, Dr. Fontaine, for coming forward again as usual. Thanks to all those who participated tonight. We do appreciate your comments, and your comments will not go just down the drain. They will be incorporated in our plan going forward. So let me just say again, good night. Until next time, we say see you on Thursday with our radio program, and hopefully next Monday with our social media program. Same time, same day. Have a good night. May God bless.
God bless.